Good evening. I just want to start off with a short story. There's a man who's on his way to a business meeting in Manhattan. And if you know anything about Manhattan, see, I'm old enough to remember when there was parking in Manhattan, okay? But if you go today, there's no parking. And this guy is late for a business meeting, and it's really a critical one. And he's circling the blocks, and all the parking garages are full. And he's thinking into his mind, God, you've got to really help me on this one. Finally, in utter frustration, he blurts out, he actually says the word, God, if you find me a parking spot, I'll go to Minyan every day, go to Daven in the shul every day for a month. No sooner do the words come out of his mouth, he turns the corner, there's a parking spot, what we call a Hollywood Park, right where it has to be. And he says, never mind, God, I found one. Okay. Now, people have this notion about praying to God, and the idea that they're going to pour out their heart and tell God how much they need His help. Well, I have some bad news. I'm like the Jewish Mythbuster, okay? That's not the way it really works, okay? If you've ever seen Mythbusters on TV? No? Mm-hmm. Two TV. So, I know, you didn't see it on TV, you saw it on the internet. Even worse. Okay. So, the idea is that God knows what your needs are, okay? And expressing it 20 times does not necessarily make it any clearer. But, and I got this from Rabbi Shimshon Pincus, who was a very famous speaker, unfortunately died young. The idea is not when you want to pray with intensity that you spell out your needs, but rather you elucidate and you emphasize that the only salvation you're going to get is from God. And the idea is, God, you know how much I need this, so please, you're the only one that can do it. There's no one else that can do it but you. The emphasis on what God is going to do is different than emphasizing what your own needs are. And that's the way prayer really works. I say this by way of introduction. You say, oh my God, that's just the introduction. All right, I know, okay? So, but I want to tell you this. I heard this story from my aunt, may she rest in peace, who heard it from the daughter of the Chafetz Chaim herself. Chafetz Chaim was Rabbi Yisrael Meir Cohen Kagan, who died in 1933, who was one of the great outstanding rabbis in his book that we use practically for everyday life. He was the end-all and be-all of rabbis prior to World War II. And in one time, he was already an older man, and he had married either 2 or 3 times. This is a daughter from his second or third marriage. And he was laying down, he was an older man, he was not feeling well. And a man came in and said he needed to speak to the Chafetz Chaim, he must speak to him. And his daughter said, well, he's resting, he's not available. And the man insisted and persisted, and whatever else you want to say, nudged or fetched, whatever he did. Finally, the Chafetz Chaim, being as gracious as he was, said, okay, send him in. The man is not in for more than 2 minutes, or around 2 minutes, he storms out, all bragging, all upset, all tied up in a knot. What is it, a bee in his bun or something? Whatever it was, bee in his bonnet. So the Chafetz Chaim calls his daughter in and says, I want you to sit down. This is all in Yiddish. You'll pardon me, I'm not doing it in Yiddish. I could. There's a vote on it, but I'm doing this in English. And he says, sit down. I want you to give me my word. Give me your word. The daughter says, I give you my word. And I says, no, really, I want you to really give me your word. I really give you my word. Then he says it a third time, and my aunt emphasized to me that the daughter of the Chafetz Chaim said it happened 3 times. No, I really want you to give me your word. Don't ever give advice to God. Don't give God advice on what to do. You know, the guy wanted the blessing from the Chafetz Chaim, who was the great tzaddik, and into all the stories that his blessings would really be very effective, that this should work out this way, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. The Chafetz Chaim says God should help you, should be successful. Chafetz Chaim left the details over to God. God will work it out. Exactly what you want to happen is not necessarily the best thing. It's not this thing that should happen. You don't know anything. You don't know anything about anything. I wish you a bracha. You should be successful. Okay? Now, I say this because I want to tell you a little story that is actually in the parashios that we just finished reading, that we read 2 weeks ago. As you know, one of the most famous stories of the Torah is the story of the burning bush. Okay? And I know the greenies want it because it never burns out, and it doesn't have a carbon footprint. But for the rest of us, it represents that it was the idea that God's presence that never extinguishes, and he says to Moshe, I want you to go to Egypt and free the Jewish people, speak to Pharaoh and tell him to let the people go. Fine. Moshe, for 6 days, he goes on and debates with God. Some of the debate is actually recorded in the Torah, some of it's not. I'm not a person that can speak well, this and that. But God is answering him. It doesn't look like it happens more than a couple minutes in the Chumash, but in the Medrash it tells us this went on for a week. Finally, at the end, he says, Shlach na b'yad tishlach. Why don't you send the person who you're used to sending? By that he was referencing Aaron, his older brother, who was in Mitzrayim during all the years that Moshe was away. Moshe was away probably for 60 plus years. He was away from Egypt. From the time he killed Dimitri until the time he came back as an 80-year-old, he was probably gone for 60 plus years. And Aaron was there in Mitzrayim all this time, leading the Jewish people, taking care of everything. And he says, send it over there. Send Aaron to redeem the people. And then the next pasuk says, "V'yichaf Hashem b'Moshe." God was angry with Moshe. There are a lot of explanations, but I want to offer mine, and I don't have a source for it except for the story I just told you. All the times, if you look clearly at the Chumash and everything else, you will see that Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, "I'm not the right person." Not the right person. God has the discussion. You are the right person. You don't think you can speak? I'll make you speak. Whatever you need, I'll take care of. The final line, Moshe says, "Shlach na b'yad tishlach." Why don't you send the one you normally send? That's already stepping over the line. Don't give, Moshe Rabbeinu, you don't give a God ideas. That's not your place. Don't tell me, Shlach na b'yad tishlach, please send who you normally send. You want to say you're not appropriate? Good, I'm happy with that. I'll spend the whole week discussing with you. Shlach na b'yad tishlach, how are you giving advice to the Eibishter? You can tell him what he should do. That's not the way it works. You ask, and if you say that if you want something, you say to God, make it work out, and make it work out in the best way possible. And you even say to God, I don't even know what the best thing is. I have no idea. Making the plane, does the plane crash? Not making the plane, do I meet my long friend that I haven't seen for 60 years? You never know what's going to happen because something doesn't work out. You just pray that God should make it all work out. But your job is not to give advice to God. God already knows how the world is supposed to run. Your job is to ask and to recognize that He's the one who provides everything, and therefore you can ask Him to make it work out in the best way possible. Thank you.